Okay, we're back again, and we're here with Sky. Sky's been a part of this since the very beginning. Actually, Sky, tell us a little bit about you and your brother and how this whole.
Okay, I'm Ben's younger sister, and Ben came up with the idea for floating doctors, but needed help actually doing it and managing it. My background is management and brand building, and so I, it's my background, and I originally came out to help him start the project for 8 weeks, and that was like 22 months ago or something like that. So I'm their director of operations, and that's what I do. I direct what we do.
Tell me how this whole thing came about, though. I mean, it's really something. Rather than have Ben talk about this, tell me how this whole thing first came about, and take as much time as you need, really.
So Ben was traveling in Africa when he was in medical school, and he was in Tanzania, and he was on safari, and his guides and him came across 3 Kalahari Bushmen, and they started talking, and asked why my brother was there, and he said he was in medical school and was just seeing Africa, and they asked him to come back to their village and see some people that were sick. And this is, I think, his 3rd time in Africa. So by this point, he was traveling with mostly medications and just a little bit of clothes. So he went back to the village. They sat him under a tree, and the next thing he knew, there was like a couple hundred people standing in line. And halfway, he started seeing patients, started seeing people, giving them whatever medication he had. And then halfway through, he ran out of medication. And I think it made like a really emotional impact on him. And so at that point, he said that he was going to go back to the developing world, but with a bigger backpack. And his answer to a bigger backpack was the boat. So we grew up, on boats on the sea, sailing. He and I actually started our first business together when I was 14 and he was 18, called Island Interns. And we were taking inner city kids out to the Channel Islands and teaching them like topography and snorkeling and like how to do like grid surveying of a reef. So this is I was 14 and not like negotiating insurance prices, and so we kind of are pretty used to doing this stuff together. This is just on a much bigger scale.
So tell me about now your experience, how it all came about, and it's not an inexpensive undertaking here to put a boat like this together and to go to Haiti.
Yeah, we are. I'm not sure whether we're lucky enough or unlucky enough to have no large government grants. So the whole project has been literally built upon like $20 donations from thousands and thousands of individuals. So the first 11 months was spent totally renovating the boat because she was really in need of it. And then kind of with not as much money as we should have had, we departed for Haiti. And I mean, on some levels, I think that's been a huge asset of ours because we haven't, there's been not a whole lot of separation between those that were serving and us. I mean, I think we arrived in Haiti with like $10 in our pocket. And so while some nonprofits are driving around in air-conditioned brand new Range Rovers, like we were Land Rovers or whatever, we're walking to the clinic with our patients. So we kind of get this entree and access into community that I'm not sure that if we had more money we'd necessarily understand or really have.
And what about when you first set foot on Haiti? What was that like?
Really surreal because before you leave, the gearing up, what we're in the middle of now, the gearing up to go is really hectic, and it seems like you're working towards it and you're working towards it and it's never coming, and then it comes really fast, and then you're transiting in the ocean for 7 days and you're sleep deprived, and so it was my first time in a developing country, so it took a couple of days for me to even conceptualize really what we were doing, because when we get somewhere, it's not like you get somewhere and you get to look around. I mean, we got to Haiti and we started to figure out how to unload the 25,000 pounds of supplies that we had on board, how to get them to the clinic. So it was like me logistically arranging with the clinic, with the UN, with where we were going to, I mean, there was no doc. So sometimes I feel like we never really have time to absorb what we're doing just because there's so much that we're doing.
And walk up that first hill that you walked up and share what you saw.
Total, I wouldn't say chaos, but just a lot destruction and rebirth all in one square foot, I guess. I mean, where we were, it was it's about 40,000 people, and they estimated about 10,000 died during the earthquake. So anyone that you met was affected personally, like on a very personal level. They either lost someone they were very close to or lost their home. So it's a little chaotic, but it's very strangely beautiful on some levels because, I mean, it was 4 months after the earthquake that we got there. And it was a town that the markets were running and people were moving forward. And I'm not sure in my own life if I can say that 4 months after such a devastating earthquake that I was moving forward. So
now, what exactly did the doctors do? How many people did the doctors see a day, and what were they actually doing? What were they performing?
Not much different from what we do here. I mean, I was a little surprised. I mean, you think that you're going to go and you're going to be like all this critical care, but people are sick and they need antibiotics and their backs hurt and they have sciatic nerve pain and diabetes and high blood pressure and asthma, and so it's really not much different from what we're seeing here. And we saw in the 2.5 months that we were there was about 5,000 patients total that we saw.
And then you came to Roatan, and I know you spent a lot of time on the east side of the island where there's very little medical care on a day-to-day basis. Tell us about your experiences out there.
Well, we were brought to the east for the first 2.5 months we were here. We were working on the clinics more on the west. We worked with Peggy at Esperanza. We worked at the RBC Center in French Key, and then with Dr. Brito in Los Fuertes. So we had kind of seen this side of the island and really had never gone east. And then a gentleman named Joseph Natali, who has a nonprofit here called Intensive Heart Ventures, just asked if we would come and take a look at something with him, essentially. So he brought us to this beautiful little clinic in Oak Ridge, right on the water. I mean, literally a turnkey clinic that had no doctors in it for 2 years. So originally we were going to work there every other week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, Wednesdays being Women and Children's Day. And I think that lasted 2 weeks, and we were there, Monday through Thursday. So it's a really underserved community. And I'm not sure, I feel like where the tourism money stops on this island is kind of where the aid money doesn't reach beyond. I know people have tried really hard. Peggy's been really wonderful trying to get stuff to the east side, but you need someone to champion it, and that's what I really hope to do here.
And yesterday was a big event here for you, as we were speaking to Ed before, that your crate came here. Could you share with us what came out of that, and where did it all come from?
All of our medications really come from a nonprofit based out of Santa Barbara, California, called Direct Relief International, and they're a storehouse of medication that are going to expire within 2 years. There's a legal, by law, a lot of hospitals can't have meds in their building that are going to expire within 2 years, so they have to either incinerate them, which is very sad, or give them to approved companies, which is what Direct Relief is, and they in turn fund people like us. They'd actually been trying to get into Roatan for years, but the shipping nature that is down here is quite complicated, and you really need someone on the ground full-time to do it. So I started speaking with them about what I wanted to do, which was supply not just 1 or 2 clinics, but from the east to the west, give a really good baseline of what the medications that this island needs, So Joseph Natali from Heart Ventures, DRI, and I worked. I counted. I personally sent almost 1,000 emails back and forth, and it was 5.5 months, and it came yesterday. So I'm actually just coming from giving 3 hospital beds to the new hospital beds to the hospital, and about 3 truckloads worth of autoclave, both medical supplies and medical equipment. And then we worked with Clinic Esperanza, the RBC Center, the Center de Salud in Los Fuertes and in Pantytown, and then the RBC Center and ourselves and the hospital. And then we're hoping that these will be bi-yearly shipments that will happen. So I'm really hoping that this will be like a sustainable way to get medication to this island.